Final Fantasy V is the real underdog of the franchise. It's also the best dog. You won't see many people talk much about it compared to other titles, but it's always been respected by the OGs since the '98 translation, in spite of sour grapes, mainly due to its fun gameplay mechanic. The job system, Spellblade dual wielding, Calm Chakra, Red and Blue, Summon Water Whites, Time Jumping, Steel and Smoke. With indefinite pairings, players are free to come up with a variety of playstyles and strategies. Guiding your ragtag compositions to victory feels earned knowing that it was your own unique solution, not including the freelancer and mine. That's 20 jobs for my 20 subs. It wasn't the first game to contain class-changing conundrums, nor will it be the last. Comparatively, the appeal was a greater emphasis on experimentation. Many of the benefits that came with a class were immediate, and didn't require grinding job points. Black mages could cast any black magic, thieves had instant access to all their support skills, testing out different attacks and defenses on a whim offered instant applicable feedback on party building, especially when there's a tangible hurdle like this turtle to apply your progress to. Figuring out you can outdamage the Torty by combining the thief job speed with the elemental black magic. Almost every main action and passive ability is innate to its job, even Magic Shell with its pelagic smell. Swapping between all the different classes doesn't hinder the game's pace with the pecuniary need to grind, and yet there are tastily spread optional abilities sprinkled to pique your curiosity. Although you don't need the chakra or lance skill, having the ability to heal without wasting MP or items whilst drawing in attacks can have its situational uses. It helps that most jobs have a consistent order on which abilities you'll get for each AP threshold, starting off with situational abilities, then their main function, and finally an equipment unlock, while magic focus jobs simply increased the level of spells you could cast when using other jobs. Grinding is often, and understandably, depicted as a needless chore despite its pursuant prevalence in RPGs. When was the last time you interacted with a class change system without being gated because you lacked the P? Nowadays, even basic functions of a class can be locked behind superfluous virtual goblin massacre. With skill point distribution in particular, having players often min-maxing into a specific build. Oppositely in FF5's case, every job is unlocked once you finish the first third. Almost all customization is already available now. It's usually only your weapons and items that may be absent, and there are plenty of generous shops to stock up on. Relatively, this faster party building is Final Fantasy V's greatest strength, but there are some caveats. Unfortunately, there are a few overpowered abilities that are locked behind excessive point gates. These are meant to be long-term goals, but not having them does inoculate a noticeable handicap. Rapid Fire is easily the best physical ability in the game. It doubles your damage output, it never misses, it ignores defenses. This skill can combine with dual wielding and elemental buffing. Not equipping it would be an active handicap. Half of the stats in the game are unapplicable to this skill. It's amazing. I love shooting people, but at what cost? Unbalanced options is one problem, but it also requires a heavy investment into the ranger job. Oh, that's the cost. 400 points. You can get, like, 2, maybe 3 per battle. And that's still less than half of the endgame behemoth that is the X-Magic point threshold. This number is the only barrier to start double spell builds, and it's split across 4 different characters. You could have the dual casting ability before you reach this dude, and nothing is technically stopping a player from grinding low-level enemies, only their own morality. Like the Saga games, there are a lot of options, but it can take dozens of hours to reach its maximum complexity. Romancing Saga 2 is one of the best showcases for the strategical depth these types of games can offer, without compromising the hardcore difficulty.
I trust you know the Empire and the Emperor?
Of course, that's our greatest enemy. That is the one person I couldn't let her go alive. Wait, don't tell me. Emperor?
It is as you hoped. Just try and defeat me.
Ideally, I'd have liked this game to give out every job and ability from the beginning, and then match the difficulty around the player's full arsenal. This could solve 3 of the game's problems. Unfortunately, the game is rather easy to accommodate multiple setups, which is a missed opportunity. Removing these points entirely would allow immediate access to more intricate builds, and even without extra content, the sheer variety can provide infinite replayability. Just look at all the challenge runs that have been attempted online. The game already has the tools for unique user experience. I find ability combination to be far too underutilized in gaming. Stacking equipment and buffs can only offer a numerical stat increase compared to a wholly new playstyle. By combining mechanics, you can create something larger than a sum of its parts. A lot of GBA games tended to rely on this aspect, which is probably why I love the advanced library, but all these games have the same issue. The player rarely needs to engage with ability combination for progression. This could be seen as a form of optional difficulty, since designing around a system like this is a nightmare. Giving players choice on how they engage with its system theoretically sounds fair, and is seemingly better, though let's consider the reverse. Imagine if obstacles punished repetitive or simplistic builds, incentivizing outside thinking by sequencing seemingly situational abilities into a victorious amalgamation. Guiding this type of play via difficulty allows complex systems and its players' creative involvement to flourish. Optimizing your team to flawlessly surpass a boss should feel rewarding because you used the game's tools effectively. This yellow sausage hides in the sand and counterattacks if you miss. When I first played this game, it was annoying having to select my target, only for the worm to evade last second. I realised I needed a powerful multi-target attack, but my black mages weren't dealing enough ice damage, though I did recently receive the Tamer job that lets me capture magic beasts, and I passed by that chimera earlier, that blew bubbles of death. Putting the two together, I attempt to catch the creature despite my low level. Although it could one-shot most of my party, I caught the bubble boy with only a fifth of my HP. I swagger my way back to the second sands and unleash the beast. That's just one of many methods. You could have used water scrolls, or steal the aqua breath for permanent use, or you could just get better at timing, or combine the Magic Knight's ice enchantment with the regular knight's two-handed ability. Because this boss is an early difficulty spike, it allows variety in the job system to flourish, navigating around the numbers to horizontally progress through the game's mechanics. My Pokemon catch and release strat wasn't just a one-off either. A good example is the final boss of World 2, X-Death.
Your devil strength!
You could fight this dude normally, he's got a lot of defense. Or you could capture 4 electric dragons and release all of them at once. Here's a boss that copies all the blue magic you acquire throughout the game. He really does copy every skill, including the self-destruct move. How about this Tortoise? Seems adamant for battle, until you cast Libera, and realise his level is a multiple of 5, so it's applicable to the instant death spell. Fork Tower is split between a specialisation with physical and magical builds. Seems like a fair test in your character customization between 2 offensive damage types. Until you equip the Reflect Ring and realise none of the enemies on the magic path can damage you. Not even the boss, Omniscient. More like, Mist. With these 4 examples, you can see there's a downward slope of perceptive thinking. Maybe you should cast the Reflect spell when all your enemies are magicians. Maybe you should use level 5 death on the boss that's level 20. Maybe you should use the water type attack on the fire type Pokemon. While a lax difficulty can allow more breathing room for glass cannon-like setups, it also opens up a worse outcome by allowing players to simply bumble through the game, though you may have to go out of your way for blue magic and certain items. The weapon you receive after the magic boss in Fork Tower is one of the most convoluted rods in the game. Look at this thing. It casts the best spells back to back with no MP cost if prepared correctly. It's a set order, but the game just lies to you and tells you it's random. How does this even happen? I empathise with those who didn't see all the crazy things you can do in this game, because practically all of it is optional. So what about people like me? What do I do once I unlock all these amazing skills? Well, I can take on the final dungeon and fight a grand total of 2 super bosses. Maybe 3. Your reward for mastering the game's mechanics and obtaining its alluring unique skills is little to nothing. I have to wonder why fans hack their game to experiment further with the system and create new challenges. I've been replaying Bravely Default with my own challenge run. It's a New Game Plus run with all my jobs maxed out, but it's also low level, on hard difficulty, with no summons. Since bosses can easily one-shot any of my party members, I have to find alternative methods to evade or block damage, whilst simultaneously attempting to whittle the opponent's health bar within this millennium before my resources run out. But the only way I could have begun this challenge is after dozens of hours of gameplay. FF5 never got an official New Game Plus in any of its revisions, not even the Pixel remaster from what I'm aware of. But we did get something close. In the Advance release, the Sealed Temple is the final challenge that was added similar to the Lunar Ruins. For FF4 Advance's case, it was an opportunity to further develop the characters through visual storytelling. For FF5 Advance, it's just another dungeon, but that another dungeon is certainly what this game needs. Before we even enter the area, we're already given 3 new jobs, which makes for a nice freebie. These aren't amazing additions, and are more like extensions of previous jobs, like how Cannoneer is a more offensive version of Chemist, or Oracle being a slightly different White Mage. Vanilla FF5 had jobs like this too, though you'd expect something more unique for re-release. I'm thinking Dark Knights or Animists, but regardless of the job, it's still good to have additional jobs. By this end point in the game, you've most likely mastered everything, so these fellows give more to work with. Dungeon traversal is also made more perilous with more traps and actual level design. I can only think of a handful of areas in the OG that had obstacles to avoid, like this funny rat. This timed waterfall switch is particularly strict for an area with random encounters still enabled, but isn't that good? The thief job is being tested by checking if you can perform the sprint and flee abilities effectively. Lava switch mazes, secret tunnels, time trials, and one-way entrances are implemented back to back, and we've still got some chunky bosses to feast on. After the final boss, my team was around level 50, and I had 70 or so elixirs with every job mastered. Upon entering the temple, the bosses were already at their late 90s, and I no longer have any elixirs. Since we're endgame now, our final opponents seem a bit overwhelming. They have punishing counterattacks and will likely outspeed or outdamage your healing, or both. Each blow is laced with a slew of status inflictions. What doesn't kill you makes you a manlet. Truly the most evil condition. Just kidding, we respect our short kings. Remember the rapid fire ability? Each of them have inbuilt defenses to this skill specifically. They knew. Grand Elvis isn't just a psycho snake. His buddies also like to indefinitely respawn and heal him. They'll likely heal faster than you can damage, so it's about taking them out first, and then dealing your damage before the rest of them return. You're constantly switching from attacking, healing, rallying, blocking, reviving, buffing, anticipating your next attack, attempting to quickly execute your commands by combining your abilities between each party member, all whilst this thing is shredding your team into pieces as it transcends into light speed. That's just one boss. Setting the battle speed to its maximum velocity with all the game's mechanics blazing through your mind gives these ferocious showdowns a unique type of challenge to overcome compared to other games in the series. There are two final super bosses that are optional. They showcase both the best and worst about this job system. I mentioned this in my Dawn of Souls video, but Omega is a boring boss, and its new version has a different problem. Omega Mark II has a bugged weakness. For whatever reason, the Calm ability is capable of briefly paralysing Omega. Complex game systems like this should be reliable, for the player to engage with them accurately. If dual casting is effective with every type of magic, then you should be able to make a reliable strategy around that fact. The worst aspect about creating any intricate gameplay system is the sadly realistic chance of glitches. With so many variables to manage, minor mistakes can quickly manifest into larger errors. For the average or challenge run player, it's a non-issue, but as a developer it can be crushing. You can spend weeks of your life programming this enemy to be a tough but fun challenge, only for it to be easily susceptible to an attack that's meant to only work on magical beasts. I've beaten this guy with a non-cheesy setup, but I didn't have to. Although I've got problems with the game, it has too many great ideas and it's worth celebrating them when they do offer a challenge they promise. Neo Shinryu is the fifth final fence for the players. Why am I talking like this? Piss Dragon is capable of turning its health bar on and off, with no indication other than your timing. If attacks aren't landing, you wait a few seconds or milliseconds, depending on your skirmish tempo. Along with occasional immortality, it's happy to fire off the strongest spells in the game, each with their own elements and status effects of course, eventually cutting off your magic. Even if you win, you can still lose to a last-second Meteor Flare combo. So how do you beat this thing? Like with the Sandworm, the game subtly offers your means of offense. These Crystal Dragons have a very small chance to drop Lancers that deal critical damage to the Dragos. Alternatively, you could use this Apollo Harp with the same effect, but this is only for bringing the pain. Timing when the health bar is active can be assisted with the Time Magic's Quick Spell. This lets the user act twice as the battle flow is paused. Even if your first action misses, you can still use your second action to recover from the inevitable status scars. Most of these spells can be blocked with certain rings and helmets, but it's unlikely you'll avoid every attack. After selecting suitable defenses for your setup, there's lots of healing methods to keep on standby. White healing magic, blue magic's white wind skill doubles current HP, the option to dual cast, the chemist's mix and drink abilities, songs which increase stats, or even a pile of elixirs can all be effective. By combining all this accumulative knowledge about the game's systems, you're rewarded with a tough challenge that respects your strategic planning. High difficulty complementing the complex ability combination. Except I lied. There's another game-breaking glitch. Turns out the strongest attack available is ironically the health regen spell. Skyblue made a video demonstrating what seems to be an overflow HP glitch, presumably rolling enemy hit points to negative. I gave this a shot and I got my results. This works on Omega Mark II too, which means there are in fact 2 glitches that can cheese the super boss. Does this discovery of one-shotting provocative mega beasts take away from the intricate gameplay? That depends on your perspective, but for me, FF5 is about finding your own fun. Regardless of which job you use, it's important to express yourself, even if it isn't always the optimal route. Optimal/good can be described in many ways, whether it be in regards to speed or rewards. The importance for these measurements of success are going to vary between players. The occupations and abilities you choose to spend time with should idealistically reflect the mindset you're comfortable with, but by accepting different methods of interacting with this world, the community can learn more about this strange, sometimes harsh, confusingly complex experience. But that's just me talking about 5 Advance, a re-release that embraced its mechanics by offering extra fuel to strategize around harder obstacles. Cool game. The Super Nintendo original is classic too. I recently got one of these open source cart readers, which allowed me to record some of the crisp SFC gameplay, without having to dig up my Nintendo, which will also come in handy for the FF6 vid along with many more RPGs. I was using this Inside Gadgets GPA reader earlier, but now the pool has gotten bigger. If you've enjoyed watching this or any of my other vids, then your support does help offset equipment costs, and eventually allow me to tackle more obtuse projects, allowing my potential to be further enhanced. No pressure though. For now I'll just drop my special thanks and peace out. Goodbye.